So class 7 batch, today I would like to taught you introducing history. So this is my first class with you all about with history, and this chapter is totally based on the knowledge you have gathered in class 6. So in this chapter we would like to interact about history, prehistory and protohistory, how this history, prehistory, and protohistory influenced us, and how we developed from protohistory to history. Next, we would like to discuss what are the sources of history. In the sources of history, we would like to discuss manuscripts, inscription, coins, and many more. Next, we would like to discuss the time frame in history, because in history, without the time frame, without the date, there is no use of history. History means the past, and past means the date, decade, everything. Next, at the end of the chapter, we'd like to discuss about the geographical features of India. That means how geography influenced the history of a decade of an area. Okay, so today we would like to discuss this much, and this chapter is very interesting. You doesn't have to mug up, just you have a fun with this chapter. Whatever you have studied in class 6, just a recapitulation in class 7. Okay, so see here, the knowledge gained from the study of history is important to understand both the past and the present. So in the first section, we would like to discuss the study of history. That means what is the importance of studying history. Before I read the section, I would like to say that history not only shows the past life of ours, but also it teaches us the present and the future. It tells us about the kings and the great men, how they performed their activities and gathered knowledge, how they settle in a particular area, how they develop their economy and society, and what type of clothes, food habits, and inhabitants they used to have, their belief, their culture, their faith, and their activities. So, this is the importance of studying history. By studying the history, we can modify ourselves, our living condition. So, we can see from the hunter gatherer, we became the modern people and we changed our lifestyle with time. So the history explain how such changes have taken place over a long period of time. So history means past, and past to present is a long period. It's a long stretch road where you have to go through various hurdles and you experience more you get barrier, your life will be more challenging. So history tells us how to know about the lives and history of the people living during this period. So in any period, when we exist in this world, we have to know the past of our life. How we can know past of our life? Because we are introduced in this world through our mother and father. So by our mother and father, we can come to know how people used to lead their life in the past, so we can understand how difficult the life was of the past, and how what we have gathered and what we didn't get, so we can achieve our knowledge and our crave to earn that um, ladder, to go in that ladder whichever we want to achieve and which was not in the past. So archaeologists explore, excavate, and study the remains to understand the history of prehistoric people and civilization. So historic period and the people and civilization changes with time. We change with our time, and people adapt ourselves with time. So see, now the situation is facing a lockdown situation where we have to adapt ourselves with the situation, so we can adapt easily, human being can adapt easily with the culture and activities and the civilization of the present. So we would like to proceed further with the term protohistory. Protohistory is the period between prehistory and the beginning of recorded history. So when we are hunter and gatherer, there is no recorded history. But after we invent, discover fire, we adopt farming. So during that time we record our history. So the gap in between the prehistory and the recorded history is called protohistory. Okay, so many records of the protohistory still need to be deciphered, still need to be invented. So you can see here an example is given. The history of Indus Valley civilization falls under this period. How? Why Indus Valley civilization has been given as an example? Because Indus and its five tributaries, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej, provide navigation and water for production of the food, irrigation purpose. This river was used. Okay, so this river helps us to identify the history which was not invented and the history which was invented. So this river is very much important, and this river has been given in the heading of protohistory. Next, we would like to discuss history. So history, as we have already told you lots of time, is the record of the past event, and this record can be found on rocks, clays, bark of the birch, etc. So how history is important for us? History not only give us knowledge, but it also give us information regarding the period of any decade, the lifestyle of the people, the kings and the queens, the area, the region. History not only has its own identity, history acts like a shadow in which geography persists. So I'd like to move further. Sources of history. So what is sources? Sources means from where we should start, and destination means from where to end ourselves. So sources is very important. If we get good sources, if we get good friends, good teacher, then we would able to succeed in life. So sources of history would like to discuss. So historians and archaeologists, there is two-person historians. Historians are those person who study about history. Not only about history, about the clays, the curves, the buildings, the tombs. They study about history. An archaeologist mainly look after the pillars, the various kinds of architecture, why the building was built in that fashion. So archaeologists look after that thing. Okay, and both historians and archaeologists try to explore the past in front of us. They use some clues of the people which the people left in the past, and this includes various things like fossil remains, bones, monuments, utensils, pottery, and many more. So history is divided into archaeological sources and literary sources. So going further, archaeological sources. What are the items are mainly included in the archaeological sources is important for both ancient, medieval, and modern. In the modern history also, whenever we go to historical places, you try to locate that thing which we have already studied in the book. So the archaeological sources include fossil remains, artifacts, tools and implements, edicts and inscription, monuments, coins, etc. So why archaeologists used to study with this? Because they want to reconstruct the past. They used man-made objects such as pottery, tools, jewelry, and try to bring out the new discovery of life. So the first archaeological sources are fossil remains. So what is basically a fossil? Fossil is nothing but the remains of plants and animals and the human preservation in rocks. So they have been buried millions and millions. There is continuous physical and chemical changes takes place, and this became the source of history. So this body parts, bone skulls, leaves a permanent mark on the rock. And fossils are the main source of information on the species that have become extinct. For example, dinosaurs. So fossils provide us the location from where to start and where to end. Next, you would like to discuss monuments. So what is monuments? Monument is nothing. Monuments are mainly found in the medieval history. Medieval history is very important because in class 7 we would like to deal with medieval history. We would like to study about the Mughal Empire, the Sultans of Delhi, and the towns, traders, and craftsmen, how the people's social life changes, and this all includes the medieval history, the rule of king and queen. So monuments are ancient buildings and structures such as temple, mosque, tomb, palaces, and forts. So the building structure is called monument. How the building need to be prepared, why this building is in that way or built in that way. And this is very important. Why it is very important? Because this building structure shows the social villages and cultural life of the people of that age when that built, repaired, or altered. So we can see in our house also that the structure of the house in nowadays cannot be seen in the past. Okay, the the windows and the doors are very much small. It's look like a matchstick, right? So you cannot see that type of windows and doors in the past. The windows and the doors was always more big. And then you can ask me a question, ma'am. So why it was so? Because in the past land remained fixed. Land cannot be increased, right? But our desire can be limited in the past because there is no science and technology. With the invention of science and technology, our desire increased. When our desire increased, government increased the construction of industry. So the building, the windows, the houses became smaller and smaller. It is like a matchstick. Okay, so the monuments, the house structure is very important to know the life structure, the habitation, the lifestyle of the people. Okay, so one example of monument is very important is Sachi Stupa. You can find the Sachi Stupa in Madhya Pradesh, and it is Buddhist monument. So Buddhism is a religion, and Buddhist religion is very interesting. Why it is interesting? Because we can get knowledge, we can get various positive thinking, because the monk and nun always inspire us, always motivates us to do something new. So the Sachi Stupa provide information of historical significance about history, about the culture, about the life, about the king, etc. It was originally built by bricks during Ashoka's time. Sachi Stupa was built during Ashoka's time with brick. Okay, it was expanded and remade of stones. Later, it was made with stones during Sangha period. An inscription on the southern gate of the stupa informs us that the gate was donated by King Satakarni. The northern gate and the panel depict stories from the Jatakas. So, whenever we can see any building, we can monuments or any sculpture, we can see that the culture, the not only the culture, I will tell you, but mainly the way, the writing, the currency, the way king used to give information, the king's information, the king's way of ruling the uh, kingdom was depicted in that inscription, in that monuments, in that artifacts. Okay, this is the importance of medieval history, nothing more. And medieval history is just very interesting. The only difficulty in medieval history, you have to learn the date. Otherwise, it is very interesting. Okay. We can also see in our life the medieval history. How? Because uh, granddaughter, after granddaughter, then daughter, then it goes on, goes on, goes on. So medieval history is like that only, no? The king's daughter, then again king, like this doesn't go on, no? So this way, the life structure, the life was led by us. So next we would like to discuss the inscription. So how inscription is important? Inscription is nothing but the written records which are engraved on the stones, pillars, clay or copper tablets, caves and walls of the temple and the monuments. So we can see everywhere the inscription. Written records is very important. Our constitution is written. So written records helps us to identify the government functioning, the rights of ourselves. They are reliable source of information about the history of any period. So they are mainly legitimate information about the history of any period. So it is ancient, medieval, or modern. So they provide us names of the kings, the administration of the kingdom, some important events which takes place during that period. So there is an example, the Ashoka inscription and the Allahabad pillar inscription tell us a great tale about the reign of Ashokas and Samudragupta. So the ruling power of the king was depicted in the inscription, was written in the inscription, so that the next king who would be coming, that king was very much known about the way of ruling in about the previous king. Okay, so inscription is very important because it is a reliable source and a written document. The inscription of the Mauryan king Ashoka are the earliest inscription in India. We should remember, which is the earliest inscription in India. Okay. Next, we would like to discuss coin. How coin help us? Coin is still used today's world. So how it help us? It is the main pillar of our existence, because without coin you cannot have economy. Without economy you cannot have development, education, employment, food, etc. So coin help us to build our economic condition, and that coin was used as a currency in the earlier period also, and it help us to identify the economic condition of a kingdom. It helps us to ascertain the territorial extent and the ring of the ruler. Coin determine the ruling condition of a ruler, the extension of a ruler, and coin also provide valuable personal information about a particular king, about a particular religion, culture, etc. Example: Samudragupta's coin tell us that he was a good Vinna player. Okay. So this is enough for archaeological sources. This much is very much important and very much uh, easy about the archaeological sources. So we would like to move forward with our literary sources. So before we start the literary sources, let me tell you that the most important distinct feature of literary sources of the medieval period is that the number and variety of literary or textual record increased during this period, and literates and chroniclers wrote about rulers, petitions, judicial record, taxes, etc. During this medieval period, we can see the teaching of saints and traders. Transactions were also recorded during that time on the paper, and manuscripts was collected only by wealthy people, rulers, monasteries, and temples, and stored in archives. So this manuscripts is very helpful as it provides a lot of information to the historians, and historians have to be very careful while using these old manuscripts. Okay, so this is importance of literary sources. See, manuscripts is the first thing. The early literary record were handwritten. I've already told you written record. They are called manuscripts. Manuscripts were written on palm leaves, the bark of birch trees, and later on paper. So before paper, people used to write on palm leaves. Over the years, many of these manuscripts got destroyed. During years, as years move on, we are moving forward in the light of development. So palm leaves was replaced by paper. Some of them are still preserved in temple, monasteries, and archives. They throw a light on the social and economic life, religious belief, and culture of the past. So manuscript provide us the economic life, the culture, the religion of the past. Okay. So we are moving forward with the language. Language is very important because without language, you cannot communicate with each other. So the language of the ancient Indian literature depend on the region where it was written. Some of the languages include Prakrit, Pali. You can see this type of language was also used by Buddhism and Jainism in class 6. Sanskrit or Tamil. For example, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana were written in Sanskrit because they were authored in the northern part of India where Sanskrit happened to be the main language. So mainly people used to deal with Sanskrit as a language. On the other hand, Shila Padda Karikam and Manimekalai were written in Tamil, since they were written in Tamil speaking area of South India. So in South India, people are mainly Tamil speaking. So they used to write in that language. And in the northern part, people are mainly Sanskrit. So people used to write in Sanskrit language. So we are coming almost to the end of this chapter. This chapter is very much small and very much interesting. So you don't have to learn anything from there. Just have a knowledge about every matter. Okay, so religious and non-religious literature. Mainly, literature can be of two types: religious and non-religious. Both are important in order to be a good human being. Literary sources belonging to the ancient India can also be divided into religious and non-religious or secular literature. So religious literature mainly include the Vedas and the Puranas, which was mainly ancient history, contain details of rituals, prayers, and religious practices of the ancient past. As I've already told you that how religious literature help us to identify our ancient, our past life. They are classified as sacred or religious literary sources. So our forefathers teaching always were considered as a sacred, okay, holy. So these are called religious literature. And non-religious literature are mainly the historical accounts and biographies written by poets. These are medieval history. Okay, so you can see the medieval history that whenever the king got any leisure time, the king used to have music and dance, and through the and there is always a poet who used to write about that king, how the king used to enjoy the life, what type of kingdom, what type of activities a king used to perform, how king administered the management of his kingdom. So during that time, there is a poet. The historical accounts and biographies written by poets and foreign travelers form part of non-religious or secular literature. So you can see various foreign travelers during that time, like Al Masudi, Al Beruni, Ibn Battuta, Domingos Pierce, Sir Thomas Roy. These are very much important travelers who come to have a knowledge about India. So these are called non-religious or secular literature. They were written to record events, tools of the contemporary society and administrative of the contemporary society. Okay, and the last important thing, which is very important, is time frame. Without time, history has no meaning. So historical events are classified according to the time in the form of before Common Era, which is called BC, and CE Common Era. So BC and CE refers to the period in history before the birth of the Christ and after the birth of the Christ. So difference come from in between the BC and CE, and historians try to arrange these events of history in sequence of time, so it become easy for the historians and for the people to understand the history, and interesting also. So these are called just a chronology. Okay, and these historical events are graphically represented, which is called timeline, time period, so that we can understand that during that time that type of kingdom persists, and during this time that type of ruling persists. Okay, so we can link. That is very important. So at the end of this chapter, we would like to discuss the geographical framework, how geography influenced the life of history of India. So the history of India has been greatly influenced by its geographical or physical features, because physical features is very important to perform any activities. If you feel very during summertime, you feel very much irritated to give exam, because we feel very much heated up during the times because temperature was more. The more temperature doesn't help us to perform any physical activities properly. So physical features influence us every now and then. So history without geography is incomplete, and geography without history is incomplete. If history provides the time, then geography provides the space. Soil type, rainfall, which is called relief features, climate, vegetation, temperature, pressure, environmental features greatly influence the evolution of history and the culture and the way of the life people used to live. So the Himalayas acts as a northern barrier which protects the country from invaders. The long coastal peninsula, these are some examples given here. India encouraged foreign trade and many kingdoms flourished in the northern plains. So geography help us to influence the natural features or physical features of our country, which always influence our activities. So this is the end of my chapter. So first you study the chapter. If you have any problem, you just come to me. Then I will give you question answer. Okay. And more details you can find from your PDF, which has been given to you by every school in different way. So this is the main protocol of the chapter, which has been taught in different school in different way. So thank you, class.